Now we're joined by Dr. Harsh Mahajan, founder of Mahajan Imaging, and someone who's actually in conversation with a lot of government think tanks and chambers of commerce also on how to deal with the virus. So he's someone who knows exactly what is happening, the situation on ground. Dr. Mahajan, is it as bad as it looks?
It is, Priya. Without reservation, I can say that. And frankly, you say I know what's happening on the ground. Probably very few know what's happening on the ground. It has taken us literally by surprise. And the way the numbers have surged is really unimaginable. And probably no one could have fathomed that this would happen.
But could this we have fathomed? Because there were enough warnings that the situation was getting bad. The UK strain had already hit India. Now, unfortunately, what is happening is India is being known for this double mutant strain, and we are going to be getting a bad name in the global, so spreading this new mutant strain. So, could we have done something to prevent it? I know there's no easy answer.
See, the viruses are going to mutate, especially the RNA viruses. That's a part of how they are. They are very clever. They always try to remain one step ahead of whatever you do. And this double mutant virus was first found in Maharashtra in October. And after that, we have seen that there was a surge, especially in the last few months in Maharashtra. The genomic sequencing that has been done, that would probably be able to provide us answers as to how much this was prevalent, how quickly it increased in numbers, and whether this is actually the one that's responsible for the surge in Maharashtra, which happened about a month and a half before, say, Delhi or some other parts of the country. In Punjab, we know, again, genomic sequencing, which is able to locate the mutations, that has shown that more than 80% of all sequenced samples were of the UK variant. And in Delhi, we still don't know that. I'm sure in the next few days, weeks, we will know what is responsible for the surge. Is it the UK variant? Is it the double mutant Maharashtra variant? Is it the Wuhan original virus? Or is it a cauldron, a kind of mixture of these? That we will come to know very soon as more and more genomic sequencing is done. But, the fact is that previously we were seeing that in a family of 6, for example, 2 people would get infected and 4 were able to save themselves. This time round, actually, all families are getting infected. We do know that the UK strain is more infectious, 40 to 70%, as compared to the Wuhan strain. About the double mutant, we don't know. But if this is actually responsible, then this also appears to be more infectious. The UK strain was similar in virulence to the original strain. About this mutant virus, we don't know. But in Delhi and in other parts of the country, we know that of the admitted patients in hospitals, the requirement of oxygen is more than what it was in the first wave. So that is one difference that one is seeing. It has also been said that probably the younger are getting infected more than the older people, but that we are told from a press conference just held that may not be the case, and that the older people are equally at risk. And so we shouldn't think that this is happening only in the younger ones and they are more at risk. The older people are at more risk as compared to the younger one, as was the case earlier. It is just that because in the last 3 months or so, we became very complacent, mask wearing was not happening, COVID appropriate behavior was not happening, parties, marriages, congregations, social functions,
elections, Kumbh Melas.
That also. But, there's no Kumbh Mela in Delhi, and it's seen this surge. So it was due to irresponsible behavior as well. And if the mutant is more infectious, then you're more likely to catch it. And that, so there is a combination of factors.
Is it also milder?
I would not say that. The hospitals being full and patients waiting outside hospitals, patients requiring more oxygen, even though overall the numbers are higher, much higher than before, with a positivity rate of nearly 30% and a 25,000 new cases a day as compared to about 8.5, 9, which happened in the first wave. So the numbers are more, but I don't think anyone has said that it's milder. However, having said that, we do know that 80% of cases are either asymptomatic or have very few symptoms and may not even require treatment. About 20% are those which are in the moderate and the serious category, and really those that require hospitalization are only about 5-6%, and about 2 to 3% may require ICU admission. So I can't say with the available evidence till more data is forthcoming, because this wave has just come in the last 4 weeks or so. Only when we know more, we'll be able to know whether it's more virulent or less virulent.
And about the testing, Dr. Mahajan, we know there is a shortage of tests. Now, as you said, all families are getting infected, but should people wait for the symptoms? For instance, because it's getting one person tested, then you have to get everybody in the family tested. That means 8 tests. So, considering there is a shortage of tests, what should the more practical advice be? I know the ideal advice is everybody should get tested, but practically.
Yes, it's a very, very, very important question, and thank you for asking it. See, there was no shortage of tests. India, from 100 tests a day, went up to 1.6 million tests a day. So we ramped up, both the public and the private sector, hand in hand, ramped up. Now, what has happened? The surge has come suddenly. I keep repeating myself, but it's not like a plane taking off. It's more like a jet taking off. That's how it has increased.
Good analogy.
And in Delhi especially, we were doing 100,000 tests a day, out of which 70% were RT-PCR, amongst the highest in the country. But even here, now with the surge of patients, we are facing difficulty. Now, we need to somehow reduce the number of patients or people who need a RT-PCR test. The first thing that the government should do is do away with this requirement that when you move from one state to another within the country, you need a RT-PCR test. I mean, we are in the middle of war, and those who deserve to get a test, who are symptomatic, whose oxygen levels are going down, they are unable to get a test because there are people crowding who can do without a test. So you very rightly said, we need to reduce the numbers, and this is the simplest way of doing it. Do away with the RT-PCR requirement in interstate travel. Number 2, there are people who get exposed to a COVID positive patient. They have to isolate themselves in their homes and not come in contact with people. These are people who, if they isolate for 7 days, 8 days, they may not require a test. These are people who are actually, again, queuing outside centers to know. The third variety of people are those who get exposed and then rush to a center to get a test done. We know that the average incubation period of COVID-19 is 5 days. It varies from 2 to 14 days. So these people, if they come in first on day 1, day 2, day 3, they'll test negative, then they'll come again. So this is repetitive testing. Even if you have to come in for a test, come on day 5, day 6, and get only one test done. Also, even the symptomatic people in this pandemic, where there's such a huge surge, anyone having symptoms has to presume that he is positive. And if you are not able to get an RT-PCR test done, don't think that I don't have COVID. follow all the COVID appropriate behavior, isolate, don't give it to your family members, don't go to office. In any case, the Delhi government has today, announced a curfew. So stay at home. Don't rush for a test. That is the only way we can reduce the numbers. I mean, this is the private sector saying we want to test less so that those who are deserving of the test get it first and they don't have to wait in the same queue as those who are less deserving or who may not require it at all.
I think I'm glad someone is actually saying this because, you're seeing the situation on ground. There's a shortage of tests, shortage of oxygen, shortage of even key medicines like Fabiflu, Favipiravir. Are there any options available, options that you can suggest for the medicines?
See, the medicine and the treatment protocol is well set out by the government of India, and that includes some drugs. All the drugs that you named actually do not have a great role to play, but they are being given because they are cheap drugs and there is no alternative. In 80% of the patients with mild disease, you may need nothing. It gets okay on its own. This is the protocol followed in the West, in the US, in England. Patients were not given anything unless your oxygen level dipped to below 94%, and that then you required some active intervention. And in our country today, we have a very robust telemedicine system that's come into place very quickly. Use that. And if it's mild disease, just keep checking your oxygen levels. You may have, paracetamol in case your fever goes above 100. And more than that, you can have a vitamin D, a vitamin C, and that's it. You don't need anything more, though doxycycline, ivermectin, Faviflu, all these are used, but let me again stress, the mild people do not need it, and these have a very little role to play in the overall reduction of this disease.
Thank you so much for this reassuring words and also for, literally metaphorically hand-holding us through this pandemic. We've been having a lot of chats with you and we'll do more in the future also. But thank you, Doctor, for helping us.
Thank you very much, Priya, and thank you for your program. And I'm sure we'll overcome.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.